Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, yesterday I stood on the floor of our esteemed United States Senate, and I said the Senate needs to do more. The Senate needs to do more. I was very careful, and I want to reaffirm today, I was very careful to say, not to say we're not doing anything. I talked about our important work on confirming judges. I think we're putting some very fine men and women on the federal bench who are going to make our country safer and make our country better. I was also very careful to talk about the fact that after a logjam had been created of appointments for the president's administration, we are finally able to break that logjam. We have started confirming some new advisors for the president. So I'm very proud of the good work that this body has done. But I did make the point that we need to do more. I talked about the fact that in my judgment, there are many issues, if we think about them, on which my Democratic friends and my Republican colleagues have more in common than we don't. But we can't determine if that's accurate or not unless we vote. Unless we bring bills to the floor, unless we get bills in front of the committee, mark them up. That's our word, as you know, Mr. President, for amending a bill. One of the bills I talked about yesterday was the need, the bipartisan support to try to do something about the spam, fraudulent robocalls that the American people are getting, about which Senator Collins just spoke so eloquently. I said there would be bipartisan support. I believed it. I believe it even more today. And I'm very proud of the Senate because we just passed a bill. You know how many people voted against it? One no vote. See what happens when senators are allowed to be senators? There are other efforts that we can work on together. The cost of prescription drugs, I spoke about that yesterday. I don't want to go into it more today. I'll give you another one. And I know this is controversial, but I think it's less controversial than people realize. Net neutrality. The importance of people being able to access the internet freely without being blocked, or without their speeds being throttled, or without them being censored. Now, that's a very controversial issue around here. But I still believe that we share more in common than we don't on that issue. And I talk with my colleagues all the time. They say, we need to pass a bill. You know why? Because the businessmen and the businesswomen and the consumers need some predictability in this area. What happens now is, if we have a Democratic president who gets control of the FCC, they pass one set of net neutrality rules. And then if we have a Republican president who gets control of the FCC, they pass a different set of net neutrality rules. And the business community and the consumers are like ping pong balls. There's no predictability. There's no certainty. You can't plan. So everybody says we need to pass a bill. Well, I'm going to say it too. We need to pass a bill. But the only way to pass a bill is to pass a bill. And I think that's an area where we can work. Another area, I understand how hard it is to fix our health care delivery system, but we ought to at least try. Now, our efforts in the last Congress to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act didn't work. We couldn't pass the bill. I don't know a single person, really, honestly, fair-minded person, who thinks the Affordable Care Act is working. But there are things we can do in the meantime while we're trying to reach an agreement on health insurance and a health care delivery system that looks like somebody designed the two things on purpose. There are things we can do together in the meantime. I think there's bipartisan support for the idea of, if you have health insurance and you go to the emergency room and you pick an emergency room at a hospital because that's under your policy, and you go and you pay your $500 deductible, a month later you shouldn't get a bill for $4,000. And you call them up and you say, what do you mean? The hospital's listed on my policy. I did what I was supposed to do. I went there. It was an emergency, but I didn't go to the closest hospital. I went to the hospital on my policy, and I get a bill for $4,000. And they say, oh, that doctor, that radiologist, not to pick on radiologists, but that radiologist, he wasn't covered by your plan. Well, how am I supposed to know? Well, we can address that. I guarantee you that there's bipartisan support to do something about that. We might not agree on the details, but that's why, God created the Senate floor. You come down here and you debate and you discuss and you offer amendments. And there are other examples, Mr. President. And let me say, I'm cutting this short because we're about to have another vote, Mr. President, on a disaster bill. Thank you. Thank you, United States Senate. Thank you, President Trump, for meeting us in the middle. I'm not clairvoyant, but I feel really good about it passing. Not good for the United States Senate as an institution, though I am proud of us today, but good for our farmers and our people in so many states that have been hurt by natural disasters and wildfires and hurricanes. Puerto Rico was hit with 2 hurricanes right in a row. We're going to do something about that today. And I'm happy for the Senate, but I'm even happier for the American people. I'm going to say it again. We have more in common, our Democratic colleagues and our Republican colleagues, than we don't on certain issues. And I think we would surprise ourselves at what we could achieve if we just tried. Mr. President, I suggest the absence of a quorum.